Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us tonight, after many technical difficulties, Jason Stokes. So thank you for coming on. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, where do you start? So the typical, back of the book flap is that I'm an artist, a director, writer, all kinds of things. Former publisher, living in beautiful Western North Carolina.
Awesome. Yeah, and we actually connected. Polly was putting together a short film, and I reached out to her. Well, I guess I put a post up on Reddit, and she responded to me and was like, "Hey, we're looking for extras because I was looking for to get involved in the film industry." I used to do a lot of acting back in the day, college stage acting stuff. Haven't really done much film. I've done like a tiny bit of film, and so looking to get my foot in the door. And I thought, hey, what a better way than to meet people in the community, and then we connected. So nice to meet you in person before the film, which usually is the other way around. But tell me, I know you don't want to spend too much time on writing and publishing because we got another topic to cover for the readers or for the listeners here. We'll figure that out in a second. But let's do a brief foray into Gestalt media. You mentioned, or you put a quote up, I believe it said, "We published a small staple of up-and-coming authors in an anthology that included Stephen King, Neil Gaiman, and about 30 other authors, a mix of top names and first-timers." So what was your goal behind this anthology?
So the anthology itself was actually it was a charity anthology. I used to live in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, and then after I had moved, but in time, man, as you get older, time just becomes an amorphous thing. I believe it was 2019. There was a shooting at the one of the government buildings in Virginia. Several people were killed there. And a friend of mine who was still there was very touched by that. He felt like just the same as I do. It's like, what can we do? What kind of things can we do to help people out? And he knew that I was just starting my own publishing venture, and he came to me with this idea. It's like, he's like, I have a lot of friends in the industry. I might be able to get us, we were just expecting some of the mid-level names that we ended up with. He's like, I can call in some favors, see if we can do like a charity anthology, and we'll donate 100%. We'll give that all to the families of the people who are left behind. I said, I'm on board, absolutely. Like before we even knew who was going to be in it, I'm like, let's do this. So we put that together. We started collecting the stories, and just as we went, it like really picked up a lot of momentum, and like some big names started signing on. And he came to me one day, and he was like, "Hey, he's like, I'm gonna take the swing. I'm gonna see if we can get a reprint." So we got a reprint from Stephen King. He was very gracious. His manager helped us out and got everything handled. And then with him on, Neil Gaiman was willing to let us use a reprint of one of his that fit the theme really well. And so we were really able to build that out. We did 31 authors, I think, total. So I was able to take the people that we knew, the people we were friends with that were very talented authors but needed an opportunity, and put them on this table of contents with like some really big names and got them exposure. And we were able to do some really good things for the families as well. So it was just a great experience doing that.
Awesome. And what was was it like a smattering of genres, or was there a specific focus?
It was straight horror genre. Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
So
so I
I
can
mean, it
tell
just
that
turns out
horror's
that like my friend, I'm really in the horror side of like the film side of horror, and he's really into the literary side of horror. So we had a lot of connections there. So
okay.
that's direction.
Awesome. You mentioned that you put out a short film shot here in Asheville. What was that about?
So I put out two, actually. So both of them were both of my first two films were shot in Asheville, and the third one actually was shot here in Burnsville, so not too far away. So the first one we did them concurrently. We did two films at the same time. So I was directing one and writing the other. The first one we did was dealt heavily with drug addiction, and was a like a bio. It's like an autobiographical, gender swapped actually for the writer. They switched roles with the person who had been the inspiration for the story, and we really went in some like creative, artistic directions. We had a lot of fun with that, and that it went out and it did its thing. It's been on the circuit. It's been tied to some pretty big names here and there. Just waiting to see if anything more comes of that. Is basically what film is. It's You do all
Hmm.
the fun stuff, and then you wait.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
I filmed that one in 2022.
Okay. How long have you been in the creative industry, would you say then?
Oh man, that goes back. That goes back a really long ways. So it's been off and on. Like I've always been doing artistic things. Now, whether they've been getting noticed or not, that's a complete other story. So I'd say, um, in this professional capacity, would have started in 2019 was when we really got going. That's
Okay.
when Gestal Media was formed officially and stopped just being this idea of maybe one day.
Hmm. And so you mentioned that you're moving away from Gestalt as a publisher. Can you tell me a little bit about that decision?
Money. No, just kidding. That's what I mean. If you want to be honest, that's the reason that the publishing was not working out. So I truly love publishing. I love all my literary friends. Like I have a large circle of friends in the Asheville area and nationwide. Well, actually worldwide. We have several in Australia and England and all that. Um, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. And I published a few novels, and it was a very gratifying experience. But you can't make money there.
Mm.
Like it just became clear. And I guess we launched during COVID, so it's like the absolute worst time to try to do anything, especially when it's so heavily based on going to conventions, meeting people, and networking, and like all this stuff that we just could not do.
Mm.
So as that was kind of like reaching its peak, and we were like, okay, this is probably the best we're ever going to do. And we came out of the gate swinging pretty hard with these huge names, and we're like, this might be all we get. At the same time, I was realizing that I wasn't really, as much as I love writing novels, it's not where my heart is. That's not where my first love is.
Mm.
So I was writing my books thinking in imagery, like the whole time. I was like, how would this look if you could see it? So I guess part of me just knew. It's like, what you really want to do, what you really ought to be doing is screenwriting and filmmaking.
Yeah. I feel like I have that itch too. I haven't quite gotten around to it, but I'll definitely be hitting you up for coaching when I do.
Oh, definitely.
But
Absolutely.
you bring up an interesting point, which is like creating for art versus creating for money. And I mean, everybody needs money to live, and artists are no exception. What would you say is the hardest part of balancing, hey, I want to do this for an art versus I'm trying to make a business out of this?
Sacrifice. It's really the hardest part of it. I mean, there are so many things that I would go out today and would make. Like I would be out this weekend scouting locations and getting our cast together, and I would probably have 4 or 5 other films that we would have already made. But the fact of the matter is, you have to choose. Which ones have the most potential? Which ones are the ones that we're most proud of? Which ones are going to be like within our means? Like at this moment, do we have certain sets available? We have certain talent available. We have certain seasons available. What can we do? What can we do with
Mm-hmm.
this? So that's really the hardest part. Is like you don't really get to do what you necessarily want to do. You have to find a way to make what you have work. And sometimes that means putting things aside because I don't have the budget for that yet. And that project wouldn't come out the way that we envision it. It wouldn't be worth it. And so we wait. So you put it on a shelf and you're like, hopefully one day we're going to get to see that made.
Yeah, I feel like George Lucas, he even said that's one of the reasons that he created Star Wars out of order. Because, A New Hope was the first one they made, is because he said he didn't yet have the technological capacity in the film industry to do those episodes the way he wanted. And, people will argue if they were better or worse, but they did eventually get made. So that is a plus for him.
Yeah, I think he fudged a little on how much he had actually written yet. But aside from that, actually, I think about him often when we're talking about this film venture we're getting into, which I know we're going to talk about. So I'm gonna help you out. I'm going to give you the segue into it. Is that he had to invent the technology. So that's the issue that a lot of I don't want to make myself bigger than I am. Just a lot of visionaries say trying to be. You run into, what do I have to work with, and is it enough? Like, can I tell the story that I need to tell with the materials that I have? And we said a minute ago, you have the option. You can either choose not to tell that story, or you can find a way to get what you need. And in this case, the technology that we need doesn't exist yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're going to invent it. And that's what Lucas did. And I can only hope I can be a millionth of the time as successful as he was. I really don't know if we're revolutionizing film or if we're just like being goofy people thinking that we can do stuff that
well,
may
I think
not even be possible. But
that's where every dream starts, is just with an idea. And if you, like you said, we're being goofy people trying to figure stuff out, like you have a passion behind it, and that's what's going to drive you. Like, yes, money is a driver in some ways, but passion for telling a story is like the ultimate driver in my mind. So for those of you that didn't quite catch on, because I think, actually, I guess we didn't say it, but he's talking about VR filmmaking. And so tell me a little bit, actually, before we get into that, have you ever played like VR games? Like, tell me about your VR gaming experience.
I love it. So I'm the author aside, I'm actually a huge fan of like Ender's Game and stuff like that. And so there's one of the very first games that got really popular, which they've actually discontinued the servers for, is Ekko VR. So it was essentially the game from Ender's Game.
Yeah.
And that was like when the wheels were just turning, it's just getting all these ideas together. That was one of the first ones that I was like, this is it. This is putting you in something that you love. And so we had seen it on film, but now we were seeing it firsthand, and you could see that transition of how it was so much more powerful to be part of it than it was to just watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played Ekko a few times. I was never amazing at it, but it was I loved the cross between like ultimate frisbee, like full contact ultimate frisbee in some ways, like in this zero gravity environment. Plus, like I played rugby for many years, so like I loved like the full contact aspect. Like,
so if you could ever play, I'm not going to derail, but are you watching?
I mean, it starts like next week, right?
It started this last week.
Oh, I see. I guess I'm not watching it yet.
That's okay. I only took the first win, so we're all good.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that. Do you ever play?
No. Well, unofficially, because I didn't realize that that's essentially when you play backyard football the way that we grew up in the 90s. Like, it was basically the same sport, but we just didn't know that's what it was. So no, not officially, not by the rules. I don't even know if I have like whatever it takes to be great at that. I don't really know
if you have a team spirit and you're not afraid to tackle somebody bigger than you, then I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. I think it looks incredible, and if I was younger, I would love to go out and try it.
Well, they have a team here in Asheville, and I don't really go out very often. I play touch with them sometimes, and like I think I played sevens with them last season for one tournament. But if you ever want to come watch or ever want to come learn, I'm sure the guys would love to have you out.
Absolutely, man. I'll be there in a minute.
Awesome. We'll hit you up. But back to VR gaming then. Other than Ekko, what are some of your favorite titles? Because like I love going off the horror aspect. I've never played a full. Well, I've played a small VR horror game, which was called. So what was the game in the 80s where you duck hunt? Was that what it's called? Duck Hunt, like on your Nintendo or whatever?
Yeah.
There's a VR one called Duck Season, I think. I forget which one it was.
Oh, very cool.
And it starts out very similar. I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but it starts out you like go into the game, you're like shooting ducks, and then like it's like an hour-long story or so, and it turns into a horror. I'll just leave it at that. And I didn't realize this when I bought it. And by the end, like I was playing in my room at like 2 a.m, and I was just like afraid to go to sleep. Like it was very creepy. So highly recommend if you want to pick it up and devote a couple hours to it. But what are some horror VR games you played then?
To be honest, not many because I'm a nerd. All right. So I do, as much as I love horror and I love horror films, in the VR stuff, I've done a few, which I wouldn't be able to name. I've done some walkthroughs of like some haunted house kind of stuff, like the Halloween hayride kind of stuff, and those things. But they hit me with the frustration that actually caused me to want to do this project in the first place, is that they're not. There's no live action. There's no people. It just didn't. It just didn't quite spark. So what I actually spend the majority of my time doing in VR is like skydiving, or like doing like ATVs, or doing like I was the other day I was doing a bunch of like F-16 style videos and ISS space station stuff, and I just really like to be in like real environments and just seeing them from that new perspective. One of my favorite hobbies and as I just said, I'm a huge nerd, is to go onto Google Maps and walk around and do it that way. So go exploring cities and things around the world, but do it in a VR perspective. So it's a little bit more like being there. So that's actually where I spend a ton of my time doing that. That being said, there was a really good game that came out. Well, Moss was good. That was one with Moss. But there was one, it was like a noir murder mystery that they did a couple years ago. It was like right after Oculus first came out. It was before Quest was even.
Is it called I Expect You to Die?
Oh, there's that one. I've heard of that one, but it was, yeah, for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But basically, it was like, the old 20s style and like, fedoras, and you're all in this big mansion and somebody's the murderer. And it's just, it's very close to Clue in that aspect. And that kind of stuff is a lot of fun as well.
Okay. So are you bootstrapping this, or do you have investors, or what's this like building a company from the ground up?
Let's say both. Let's say most of it is coming out of pocket. And that's really the reason for the long runway here, like the long startup, because not only in having to do all the studying, because the amount of technology that goes into this is, there's camera technology, but there's also the wearables technology, there's the mobile stuff that has to go into it, there's programming languages, and then you move over to VR. It's a whole new world of things you have to learn over there. So just ingesting all of this information has been long and arduous. So we have people who are watching with interest, is really the way I would put it. Like, so they're like, this will be great if you can figure it out. So I'd like to think we got a pretty good shot at that. I'd say it's about 80% of the way there at the moment.
So you and I chatted about this in person, but for our audience, what are some of the challenges with the technological side of shooting in VR?
So this is Lucas. This is our mascot, and he's going to be part of this whether I want him to or not. So some of the technical aspects that go into this. Well, the first one was whether we were going to do like pancake style, like flat, with just a 360 view, or if we were going to do 3D. So up front, that completely changes the kind of camera system that you're going to use and how many cameras you're going to need. So in order to do 3D, you have to use the 2 cameras for every eye, which is usually 2, but because we're doing 360, you're talking about, I think, like a total of 10, up to 14 cameras, depending on how much coverage we want. And that's kind of difficult, like that's like getting all those concurrent streams. Like we don't really, the other part of it is, of course, the processing units and how many we need, and hiding those. So we need something very compact and very small, but that can handle high definition streams of video and process them quickly, but not take up a lot of space and not get really hot. So that was a couple of things we had to deal with. And of course, you've got your field of vision. So the entire idea behind this, and the major hurdle that nobody had figured out, because of course, now I'm going to get talking. So of course, people had come up with 360 cameras. Like there's a lot of them. There's a lot of companies that do 360 cameras. Eli Roth even did a movie, Valentine's Day, this last year, that used one that was basically mounted in place, which gave me the confidence that this works. Like people have seen this. They know this is a good idea. But the idea is that we need it to be mobile because we want it to be first person. So we don't want you to feel like you're sitting on a stick. We want you to move around. We want, if the actor looks, you can look, or you can be independent. So which is another consideration. Are we going to do independent motion, or are we going to do directed motion? One or the other really has a major impact on how the film's going to come out. So designing the rig itself to be worn by an actor, to be lightweight enough that they can move around and they can act normal, and everything's going to come from their perspective. So it can't be like something you're wearing on your head up here, because when you tilt your head, it's going to look weird. That's not the right angle. It needs to be eye line. So designing a rig that has lightweight materials, has high definition cameras, which are hard to get that small, that can all transmit back to a central or a bank of central units that are lightweight and small and easily hidden, because the major obstacle with 360 view is you can see everything.
Yeah.
So we can't just tuck these in and hide them. It's a difficult process.
Yeah. Sounds like a big challenge.
There's a few of them.
So you mentioned, I saw a post you did the other day, which you mentioned some turnover at your company. So what are some of the challenges other than the technical side of running a business? Because as a lot of creative people find out, specifically authors, when they're trying to get into self-publishing or something, you realize that there is this whole business that goes into self-publishing, and the creative side and the business entrepreneurial side don't always go hand in hand. So what do you as a creative person have to bring to the table as far as advice for entrepreneurs building a business?
So the main thing that I've noticed, and this is how way back in the day we even got into publishing it, because artistic people are not, by and large, great at marketing. These are not, the Venn diagram for this is almost two circles. They just don't overlap at all. So marketing is a really, really, really hard thing to learn. If it's not a strong suit, if you don't have a passion for it, because it's absolutely brutal. It changes every day. Things that work today may not work tomorrow, and it is incredibly expensive. So going down the wrong road could put you out of business entirely. Like, you have to make these decisions, and you have to be able to roll with them. You have to be able to anticipate where things are going to go, and you have to find your audience. So that's really, for any creative, like the core of actually succeeding is really not as much, as sad as it is not doing your art. Like, your art you're doing because it fulfills you. But the business side is finding your market, learning how to speak to them so that they listen to you, so they trust you, they like you. And a lot of artists are introverted people. I have that tendency to kind of get, like, when we're working on projects like this, I just withdraw and I go into the shop and I'm like, let's make this. Let's make things, and get super hyper focused, which is actually the name of the company that we're putting the camera together as. And so it's real. You have to remember to stay engaged. Like, you get the ball rolling, you get people excited. You're over here and you're in the churning phase, and then you're like, oh, I got to get over here and work on I got this business plan that's due, or I'm not going to get my investors, and I've got these. I got to put out the new iteration of the camera system. I got to make sure it's working. I got to fix that problem with the videos. I got to get the syncing problem. I got to work with sourcing. And then you forget that you've got people over here and they need constant attention. So, that's been one of the major hurdles, is being able to balance all of that stuff, or finding people who can do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Stepping aside for a second to the more creative aspect of your journey. You mentioned that you watched 500 films over the course of a year. So, first off, what drove you to watch more than one movie a day?
Time and frustration. So one of the things about when you're trying to create something from nothing. So this whole idea, we didn't have any groundwork. We had to lay it ourselves, right? So we had to just come up with everything on our own. And that takes time. It takes research, but it takes patience. And the whole time I'm like, well, when I get to point B, so when we're ready to build, I've already made a few films, and I consider myself to be a movie fan. Like, I've seen tons of movies. I grew up watching them. I go as often as I can, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert. And so I had to ask myself, where are you going to get your education? Right? So, I could, do some online classes, or I could see if there's something local. I have, there's some pretty good connections to the Asheville Film School. But I was like, if I really want to maximize this time where I'm essentially just sitting around, sitting on my hands waiting for things to come together, what better way than to get an intimate knowledge of what it is that we're trying to evolve, right? So I wanted to know what makes a great movie, what makes you love it, and not just the ones like the IMDb top 100 or whatever. They're great. Everybody knows they're great movies. Nobody's arguing that. They're incredible scripts. They're incredible actors. What makes a movie bad? What makes it absolutely terrible? And even better, what makes you love a terrible movie? Because I love some of the worst movies that have ever been made. And
give me some examples.
Plan 9. Come on. Plan 9
Never
from
even
Outer
heard
Space.
of that one.
One of the worst movies that's ever been, possibly the worst movie that's ever been made. Summer Party Massacre, absolutely one of the worst movies that's ever been made. And the second one, third one was interesting. The second one is definitely the worst film I've ever seen. It's one of my few. I just turned it off. I was like, I'm trying so hard to get through this, and I'm not. I can't. I can't respect myself if I finish this stuff. So that was kind of the thing. It was just like, what makes a great movie? What makes like an Oscar-worthy movie? Okay, sure. But what makes genre film, which is really where I think most of the, the everyday people, this is where we live. We live in genre films. What makes us love them? What is it about them that's attracting us? And like, how can we bring that to this? How can we make this, new technology, this new genre essentially that we're trying to invent? How can we capture some of that magic maybe and make it like that, a joyous experience, a fulfilling experience for the people that try us out?
Mm-hmm. So what lessons did you learn then about storytelling from watching these 500 movies?
It's a lot of the same stuff as novel writing. I think the key is character. Character is everything. It's absolutely everything. You will all sit through a movie that we know is bad. If we care about the person who's in it, if we care about the characters who are in it, if we have any reason to like identify with them or find a piece of ourselves in that, or even just want to see good things happen to them or bad things happen to them in some cases, that's what brings us along, and we're willing to overlook a lot to get to that. I think the driving force behind every movie worth watching and pretty much all fiction media is character.
Yeah, that's very true. So you mentioned to me you've been focusing more on writing your own screenplays than novels recently. So what are some screenplay projects that you've done in the past, and are any of them films?
Yeah, so I adapted one. I mentioned that before. One of our old authors, he had he has a podcast that I won't plug here for the competition.
No, go for it.
He does Dark Corners. So it's David Allen Boyles. He was the author of ours. He does. He's very influential. Like he'll tell script, Twilight Zone. I really loved his classic take on things. It's not a lot of the current it's not splatterpunk. It's not gory. It was more character based. So he did one for Valentine's Day. It was called Cemetery Tryst, and it was essentially just about a vampire that goes out on Valentine's night and is looking for a victim, and things ended up getting a little twisted around, at the end. And we had a really good time filming that. We got to build a crypt from nothing. We got to film in Riverside Cemetery over here in Asheville, which is a rare occurrence. They don't let too many people in there. It was great. It was really fun. I think the final film came out great. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. We worked with like a really good DP that I think a lot of people are going to be hearing about, and then we had some amazing actors that went along with it, and everything just felt like it was elevated and coming together, and it was such a great experience for your first script. So even though I didn't write the source material, I did the adaptation, and seeing everything that you would envision and all these scenes, I'm like, I gotta have this scene, I gotta find a way to get this scene in here, and then we're out there and it's like coming together, and I got to do this. I got to keep doing this.
So. Yeah, caught the itch for creativity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we briefly mentioned, or you briefly mentioned how the most important thing in the story is the character. Mm-hmm. So what are the differences between writing a screenplay and a novel then?
Oh man, I forgot the word. Exposition. So the major difference, and one of the things we're bridging, which is why I love this project so much, is you can't literally get inside the head of an actor. You can see them, and if they're talented, then I think Harrison Ford said he actually had a writer throw away an entire page of dialogue. It's like, I can do that with a look. That was in Air Force One. It's like, I don't need any of that. It's like, I can just look, and you'll know all of that. You'll know all the things that you wanted that I was thinking, and it worked. It actually did work in that case. But for the most part, when you're writing fiction, when you're writing novels, you can just say, I'm morose, I hate my life, whatever, I'm hungry, whatever. You can put all that in there. But on the screen, you have to impart it in different ways. And so That's really the challenge with screenwriting, and we made it harder because screenwriters like to cheat, and they like to use coloration, and they like to use it's the other mascot, like use different camera angles, and there's a lot of things you can do to kind of force that perspective, and we're giving all that up. So I'm not going to have any of that. So it's really going to be even harder. You're really putting it on the characters themselves to kind of emote this and get it across and make you feel it, because they're out there by themselves. It's a lot like you said you were in theater. It's a lot like theater. You just don't have any of these other tools. It's just you and the material.
Hmm.
And can you bring it to life?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the story for your current VR project, without too many spoilers, of course.
Oh, I don't think it's too many. So the first VR project is going to be about 45 minutes long. It's 3 parts, 3 15-minute parts, which is something else that I'll get in that we'll probably won't get to. But it's kind of, I view this whole thing as being episodic. I think that's really the place to go. Somebody sitting down for an hour and a half in VR is a big ask right now. It's just not a big enough part of our lives, and the equipment's still a little bulky. I think we're headed there. So we're going to start out with basically extended shorts. So it's the first one we're doing is to stick to Appalachian roots. So we're doing like a very scary Bigfoot style, like cryptid story. So we're going to have, a couple of actors who go off into the woods in search of looking for Bigfoot, and what they find is not at all what they were expecting to find. I think we got some really good set pieces in that, some things that are going to like really take advantage of the medium of like being present in the moment that I don't even think would work in film. Like this is, hopefully we're finding the things that are special about this particular genre, and we're going to be able to use that to our advantage instead of trying to recreate something that already exists and it's already been done like very well. So there's no reason to do that again. So we have some really scary scenes in that, some things that I think will get people, like if you don't throw your headset across the room at least once, and I don't know, maybe I didn't do my job, but I think you'll at least be tempted.
You should go and do a partnership with Oculus, and hey, we need to take out insurance policies and all these headsets and stuff. Have a whole new business model.
Absolutely, man. We need to like Samsung does. They put the insurance on everything. Yeah.
So
man,
you said you're. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Quest is definitely like our target. Like I definitely want to get on Quest and make that like our foothold. That's the goal. And then grow with that market. I think that's where it's really at.
What do you see the buyer sell point being? So they would go to the store and spend $4.99, $15.99, $50.99. Like what would the price point for a buyer
what's the
be?
price point going to be? Well, actually, so we've toyed with a few ideas there, and so you have a couple different models that you have to choose from. You either have to do like a subscription model, which I'm not a big fan of because everybody's sick of subscriptions, or you have to do kind of like a freemium thing. And I think that might be the way that we end up going. So I'm almost dead set that the first one's going to be free. Okay, so the cryptid story, that's going to come with. After that, I'm thinking that what we're really looking at is maybe even just like the early days of Prime, where it was like $2, to rent a film. I mean, I don't want to make this like extravagant for people. Like if it's as good as we think it is and it takes off, then we'll be able to make our money back. It's not really a big deal. The idea is to get these stories out. So the first 4 or 5 films that are coming out, which are all hopefully will line up over the next couple years. I don't really want to see a big price point for that. I don't want to gouge people on that. I just want them to get it, and I want them to start seeing the potential that this medium has. I want to see that VR is more than just. I mean, I love playing games in VR. I absolutely love it. But one of the big drawbacks that they have right now, and even Zuckerberg's like banging his head, robotic head, against the wall. There's no content. We don't have that content yet. Somebody needs to make the draw. What is going to get people to put your headset on and really want to be here for 15, 30 minutes, however long you want to be here. And hopefully this is one of those that's going to be what you think of. You're like, I want to get that new VR because I want to see there's these movies out that I can only catch this way. And I've heard so much about them. And they look really cool. And it's a whole new way to like interact with stories and, be a part of it and stuff like that. So we don't want it to be expensive. We want it to be accessible. And then after that, there may be like alternate versions, like maybe, for a couple of dollars, you can buy like the unrated version or whatever and stuff like that. Stuff that people have been doing in film forever. But let's lower the bar a little bit. Let's bring people in, get people in the seats, and then see what happens.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you're starting filming in May, and then you have a follow-up project in September. What's this follow-up project?
Top secret. So the idea is that we're going to keep. Like I said, I'm a huge horror fan. I really think that's the home here. I think a lot of independent filmmakers know that horror is a good place to get started because the community is incredibly loyal. So and that skips into books, it goes into movies, it goes into pretty much anything. The horror community stands together. And they're very supportive, and they're always looking for new things. I think they're fairly open-minded to new ideas. So we're probably going to stick really close to the thriller, supernatural, the horror fans, and things of that nature. We're going to stay dark out of necessity because we have to hide it. No, we're going to Zack Snyder it. We're going to keep everything really, really dark. So we're going to stay with that. We're going to stay in that genre. There's things I want to experiment with. So I've always wanted to do kind of like my own riff on like the 80s slasher film. So that's what the second one kind of builds around. It's like just like the cryptid thing. It's not like, this is not Bigfoot in a suit with like, rug hanging off of him. Like, this is a truly scary creature. We're doing the same thing with the other ones. So I like the core concept. I like the bones of it, but let's make it something that people want to see. Let's make it something that people are going to remember and like viscerally get to experience for the first time. It'll have a lot of the tropes that you used to. Excuse me. A lot of the things that really like bring you to the genre, but I want to envision it in a whole different kind of way that's gonna, excuse me, it's gonna test some boundaries. So that's what we're really going for.
Awesome. Well, if you're looking for any pretty faces, well, I mean, I guess it's horror. So if you're looking for any hideous faces, I want to get in front of the camera so you know where to find me.
Always. I mean, there's like 10 of them, so you have to which way you're going to be. But no, definitely. Like I want to use local talent as much as we can. And not just out of necessity, because I fully believe that once the first one gets done, and we have that product to show, and that we can show some of these investors who are interested, but they're kind of just like wait and see. I think it will be able to open up some new opportunities, but I still want to keep it close. Like all my the first 5 that I've planned out, because of planning. I'm a plotter. So if you're wondering what kind of novelist I was, plotter. Like Excel sheets for days. I want to keep that close. I want to keep this community, which has been, not only an inspiration, but has been very supportive. And they give me some really good chances that I probably didn't even deserve at the time, to be honest. They've given us that opportunity. So I want to keep people who are close involved in this, and let's grow together and see how this thing works out.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed is that the creative community, whether it be now as I'm getting into authors and getting to know them, or when I was doing acting in the past, like the creative community is such a welcoming community and such a strong backbone and building each other up. So that's a good place to start. Any final words or any final comments about your project or anything else before I let you go?
Man, I just want to see this happen. I want to see this happen for everyone, not just me. Like I think I mentioned to you, I grew up as a Star Trek fan. I was a huge fan of the holodeck. The first time I ever saw that on screen, I was like, I gotta see that. I gotta be that. I gotta see that happen. And then I think Jurassic Park came out again, not the original. The original was like I think our entire generation was rocked to our core when Jurassic Park came out. It changed everything. But I resaw it in 3D when they redid it. And that was the very first time that I was ever afraid of the T-Rex. And I saw Jurassic Park when I was like 8 years old. But I saw it again when I was 25 years old. And in 3D, it's the first time I understood how scary he was supposed to be. And I thought to myself, how much scarier would it be if you were there? If you could put a person there. It's like, what if the trees were like, swaying as they were bringing in the cage, or what if, like you could hear that roar behind you somewhere. And I was like, that's going to happen. And then, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I was like, well, maybe you can make it happen. And so that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, every artist should just write the story that they want to write, or in your case, shoot the story you want to shoot. If it doesn't exist yet, then make it happen. So I applaud that. Awesome. Everybody, we have Jason Stokes, and I'll give you a round of applause. Oh, wait, I have to edit it in because the soundboard isn't working. So round of applause for you.
Thank you.